Hey there guys, it's your boy Manny here. Welcome to DFS Zone, your source for daily fantasy sports lineups for the NFL, NBA, and MLB. And before I continue with the video guys, I would appreciate a like on the video, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and turn on those notifications so that you'll be able to catch all my new uploads, alright, which will be daily. Today is March 21st, 2018, and on the screen as you see is I'm gonna go over some of my lineups from last night and just do a little quick recap. As you see here on the screen, I scored a 3-10-10. This is for the 5K main event, but it's for the 5K, which is a smaller tournament. The score on the right is this winning score, 391 on the nose. I have here my stud 5 that I use in this particular lineup. I did make 4 lineups for this event, and I cashed in 3 out of the 4, which I'll share with you in a moment. But 3-10-10, great score. Like I always tell you guys, you score over 300, you got a shot to make some cash, either if it's in a cash game, 50-50, heads up, you name it, GPP. If you have the proper lineup, you're going to have a shot. So 3-10-10, I'll take it. I wish it was the 391, but it wasn't. But let me go over the stud 5 from yesterday. As you know, I gave you guys Jeff Teague, Alfred Payton, Andrew Wiggins, Josh Jackson, and Mr. DeAndre Jordan. And Mr. Teague, not too bad of a game, man. 39-8. He finished with 8 field goals, 4 rebounds, 12 assists, 1 3-pointer. Mr. Payton was the dud of the night out of the 5. Once in a while I do get one of those. And this is the second strike on actually Mr. Payton over the last 2 or 3 weeks that I have put him up. He's given me 2 dud games. This is the worst out of the 2. He's only going to get one more shot. It's not going to be anytime soon though, but the next time I choose to put him in a lineup, it will be his last opportunity to give me some good numbers. But pitiful game. I mean, he finished with 13.1, 2 field goals, 3 rebounds, 5 assists. He had committed 2 turnovers. I mean, it's just you're not gonna win. You're not gonna get anywhere with someone putting up these kind of numbers. So it's just a horrific night for him. Obviously, a horrific pick for me, and a pick that I shared with you guys. I apologize for that. I will definitely try to continue to bring you guys the best possible lineups and suggestions, and I do have a nice stud 5 for you guys today, and we'll go over that right after we go over the recap. But next on line here was Andrew Wiggins. Mr. Wiggins finished with 41.6, 9 field goals, 3 rebounds, 3 blocks, 1 steal, and 4 3-pointers. Productive night for Mr. Wiggins. Surprisingly, no assists, but not a bad night at all. I am definitely pleased with that. It would have been nice to see him hit more closer to 50, but 41 is fantastic. Josh Jackson, 31.2. I expected a little bit more from Josh. He was pretty much around value, just slightly below. 6 field goals, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 steal. But nonetheless, it's not a dud. It's a fair number, and I'm happy with that. I'm pleased with at least that 31.2. It's definitely better than 13.1. Then Mr. DeAndre Jordan, 41.9, just basically pretty much at value. He was only 6% owned, close to 7% owned, not bad. He finished with 31.2, 6 field goals, I'm reading the wrong guy. He finished with 9 field goals, 12 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 block and 1 steal. Overall, a very, very good night for DeAndre. On the right hand side of 391, the guy had a couple of monsters. Mr. Schroeder put up 55.5. He was only 9% owned. That is a fantastic score. I mean, and then of course Rondo was one of my guys that I mentioned to you guys as a suggestion yesterday when I gave you the stud 5. I thought he was a guy who was in play, but I also did say you don't know what kind of Rondo you're going to get. You don't know, because he's a kind of Jekyll and Hyde. He's one of these guys that can have a 20-game dud or a 15-game fantasy point game, and then he can have something like this, a 55.8. So it's the second 55-point game in over 4 or 5 games. So kudos to Rondo. Unfortunately, I didn't have him in any one of my lineups. I should have threw him in 1 or 2 of them, but I did not. But nonetheless, a big night for Rondo. Of course, he had Mitchell, which I had as well. He had Wiggins. We both had the same shooting guards. He had Mr. Paul George and Etuan Moore. Gave him about 64 points together. Mine were 67. So I was a little bit better in the small forward position. At power forward, that's where he got me at. He had Blake and Taj Gibson, and I had Nowitzki and Aminu. And then he also got me at center by 13 points with having Yusuf. Nurkic. And Mr. Nurkic, he had a great game. He's another guy that's Jekyll and Hyde. You don't know what you're going to get. He usually gets in foul trouble, and then he's just a bust. And last night was one of those days where, you know, he put up 50-somewhat points. There are nights he'll put 40. There are nights he'll give you only 25. So you don't know. He's very inconsistent, but he's a good GPP play. And last night it paid off in his GPP play for this gentleman who put him in his lineup. So I had him in one of my other lineups. I did use him as well. But my main guy was Mr. DeAndre Jordan. So, I mean, like I said before, I did make 4 lineups here. I'll share the 4. I scored a 315 was my highest number. I had a 313.30 and a 310.10, which is the one that's on the screen. And then my lowest one was 281. I did not place there, and as you can see, under 300. You don't make any money. You know, I put over 300, and I got myself 3 out of 4 winning lineups. So a good night for DFS Zone in general, because we aim to, you know, I always aim to be in that 300 range or better, and that's exactly what I did. If I go back, let me go back and share with you a few more. The after hours I did place here, got $10. Let's see how that went there. Yeah, this one was crazy. It was about 20 people tied for first. It can happen in after hours when there's only 2 games slate. But 325.60. I finished in 4,560th place out of 42,000 people. I'm always pleased to be in that top, you know, 10% or 5%. 374.60 was the winning score, but then again, like I said before, it was like 21 people with that same lineup, so yeah, they all split the money for $4,185.71 a piece. Nice lineup. He had Chris Paul, I had Paul and Lillard. He had Paul and Ish Smith. I best him here by 5 points. Shooting guards, he had Kennard and Harden. I had Harden and Daniels, and of course Kennard beat out Daniels there, so that's why he got a little bit more there. Small forward, 61 total points. He had Stanley Johnson and Josh Jackson. I had Jackson and Harkless, and I was shortchanged there by about 5 or 6 fantasy points. And at power forward, he had Eminu and Blake for about a 95 spot. And I had Blake and Chris was just, you know, obviously didn't pan out well for me. Alex Lynn was a good, you know, $3,900 investment. You know, this guy put in 42.9, so I mean, he had an awesome night. And of course, Mr. Nurkic 54.7. So a nice lineup for this gentleman, for, you know, whoever won this with a 374.60. You know, and that's pretty much my night. I did, you know, like I said, I finished in three categories. You know, I did get $5 here. These were single entries. You know, I'll share those with you real quick as well. Where this was $1,500 for first. I mean, I was pretty close on this one. I finished with 273. I finished in 655th place, and you know, that's pretty much the deal there. Blake, Andre Jordan. Am I even in the right game? I might have went back to. I apologize for that. I think I might have went to the 19th, or did I? Yeah, the 19th I did. That's my fault, guys. And yeah, this 310. Yeah, those were my best scores. Those were the best scores of the night. Not too bad. I mean, I didn't play a lot of lineups last night. But you know, let's go right. Let's just dive into the stud 5 for today, guys. And give you a little bit of my intake. Let's go here. We're gonna go main event. Let's do. I did a couple of lineups already, but I'll do another one right in front of you guys. We'll do a 5,000. And this is a nice 8-game slate. And like I said before, I already have looked over. I already have my stud 5. My first stud of the day, guys, I'm going to the point guard position. And I'm going to Mr. Kyle Lowry. I'm a little torn here. I mean, Walker is a good play too, but he's 1,000 more. He's playing against Brooklyn, and we'd love to pick on Brooklyn. They're terrible against the point guard position, but Cleveland is just as bad. So I think Lowry, just simply because this game is going to be more like more competitive and it's going to stay close, whereas Charlotte could possibly blow out Brooklyn, or vice versa. Brooklyn is a little bit more difficult to beat at home. But you know, I just think if you're going to compare the two, I'd rather pay 1,000 less and have a chance that this game may go the full 4 quarters and be competitive, which I believe it will be. It's going to be more like a playoff atmosphere, and Kyle Lowry is going to get pumped up for this stuff. You know, I mean, this is a big game, but nonetheless, you know, he's had 39 plus points, fantasy points in his last 3 or 4 games, and he has put a 37 spot just not too long ago, 2 games ago against Cleveland. So he's played well against Cleveland at least 2 games ago. His previous game before that, he didn't play as many minutes. But Cleveland, you know, being where they're at, they're 23rd ranked against the point guard in fantasy points allowed. They're 26 in point guards fantasy points per minute, and they're 22nd in the league against point guards in field goals given up, and they are also ranked 30th, which is dead last assists per game by point guards against them. So you know, all the makings of Kyle Lowry having a great game here. So I'll go over the statistics, and I'll basically 9 times out of 10 I would probably go with the numbers more so. Like I said, Walker's numbers are great too. He's in a good spot there as well, with Brooklyn being, you know, pretty much in all the phases of the game. They're pretty much ranked similar to Cleveland. So, you know, I would say that definitely Kemba Walker is in play and maybe a lineup of mine tonight. But my main core 5, I would go with Kyle Lowry. My next stud is also going to come out of the point guard position. I'm going to go with Darren Collison. Collison at New Orleans, Indiana, very good team overall. New Orleans is playing at home. They usually play very well at home, but New Orleans is another team that really struggles against point guards. You know, New Orleans is 29th in field goals, fantasy points allowed against point guards. They're 27th against the minutes fantasy points. They're 30th in the league in rebounds allowed. You know, and Mr. Collison is a rebounding. You know, he's a rebounding point guard. He's not a point guard that just, you know, he doesn't like to dish. He likes to score, and he likes to rebound and actually put back his own shots. And so Collison is in a good position. They're 18th against 3-pointers allowed by point guards, and they're 26th in assists. So it doesn't fall into play for Collison in that category, but nonetheless, New Orleans really struggles a lot with point guards in a lot of areas, from fantasy points all the way through assists and 3-point shots. So I mean, Collison is in a good spot here to do very well against Cleveland. Against New Orleans. So I mean, you know, I would say pencil him in as your second stud. Stud number 3 is coming out of the shooting guard position today. And again here, I actually like 2 or 3. I like 2 studs here. I like Evans and I like Barton, but I'm going to go with Barton. Willie Barton is in a better position. I hate to start, you know, really beat up on Chicago, but Chicago really struggles a lot with point guards and shooting guards, and they're facing a guy here. The long as Gary Harris is hurt, you know, Willie Barton is going to play, and he's in a very good position to do very well against Chicago here. Willie Barton, Chicago is 29th in leagues in the points allowed, fantasy points allowed against shooting guards. They're 29th near the bottom, also in fantasy points per minute. They're 24th in the league in rebounds allowed to shooting guards. They're 17th in field goals made, and they're 30th in 3 points allowed, and that's a specialty for Barton. They actually had a 34% clip there. They're really bad against shooting guards that shoot for threes, so they don't defend the threes very well. Willie Barton should have a heck of a game putting up his 3-pointers today, so I expect him to have a big game. 7,700, pencil in Mr. Willie Barton. My 4th stud of the day is going to come also from Denver. It's going to be in the small forward position, and I like Mr. Wilson Chandler at 6,100 against Chicago as well. Chicago definitely struggles. Now this area here, I will follow up. There's a couple guys here that are pretty interesting. Josh Richardson is in a good spot. Mr. Valentine against Denver is in a good spot. Carroll is also in a good spot, and Covington. So you got a couple of options here when it comes to the small forward spot. But I think my favorite one of all here is Mr. Chandler. You know, Chandler is going to go up against Chicago, and 3 out of his last 5 games he's put up 40, 48, 30, and 27 In his last 2 games against Chicago, he's put up 25 and he's put up a 34.5 spot. So he's done well against Chicago. He's on fire right now as far as his play. So I think he's in a good position with Chicago. Chicago 29th in the league in fantasy points allowed to small forwards. They're 29th in fantasy points per minute allowed, 21st in rebounds, 27th against field goals made against small forwards, 23rd in 3 points allowed against small forwards in the league. And not only that, Mr. Chandler, he has those moments where he just goes in and shoots those threes from all parts of the 3-point range, and he is usually very effective when he's hot. He's good from almost anywhere. So overall, a very, very good spot for Wilson Chandler today. I expect him to have a big game. I just hope that the game is competitive enough in Chicago, because usually Chicago is a little bit more feisty at home, that it will keep this game interesting enough for Willie Barton and Wilson Chandler to put up the numbers and still keep the game close enough so this could go 4 quarters. Because this is a game that you can possibly see a blowout. If Denver is right on and Chicago isn't, this could be an easier blowout. So it's the only drawback out of these 2 guys is if this ends up being a blowout situation, then it will not be good picks. But overall, I think these 4 studs that I've just given you right now are awesome plays for tonight. My last stud is coming from the center position that I'm going to give you guys today, and it's going to be Mr. Dwight Howard. Howard in a good position now. Again, Jokic is in a great spot. Embiid is in a great spot. If you want to pay up for those guys, fantastic. As you know how I feel about Mr. Jokic. He's probably the best center in the league. Dwight Howard's in a good spot. He's playing against Brooklyn. Brooklyn, as we know, we always beat up on Brooklyn. All of us guys, all us YouTubers, all us DFSers that are out here trying to help out other people with lineup building. We all say it, and it's a fact. Brooklyn really struggles against centers, and it's not going to be any different tonight. That's the only difference. The only problem with this game, of course, is that possibility of it being a blowout, and we're hoping that that's not going to be the case. Brooklyn does play a little bit more tougher at home, and if you got Mr. Jefferson, Mr. Crabbe, Mr. Carroll, and Mr. Russell playing well, and even if Dinwiddie can play well enough, they will be able to hang on there and play long enough in this game to make it competitive and give Charlotte an opportunity for guys like Dwight Howard to do very well and be on the court longer. So, but Dwight is in, it's just a situation. He's just in a very, very good spot here against the Brooklyn Nets. Let's see here. Howard playing against the Brooklyn Nets. I'm trying to look here for his statistics. But he's in a good spot. Dwight Howard, Brooklyn is dead last in almost every facet of the game when it comes to the center position. So, I would say pencil him in. I think that these are all 5 great plays for you guys today, guys. There are some other possibilities as well. At center, we'll stay at center now that we finished with Howard. You got Valanciunas against Cleveland, very good spot. 3 out of his last 4 games against Cleveland, he was put a 35. He's put a 27 spot and a 29 spot. Cleveland is 18th in field goal in fantasy points allowed to centers. They're 19th in field goals and fantasy points per minute given up to centers. 23rd in rebounds, 19th in field goals made, and 17th in 3-pointers allowed. All the good makings for Valanciunas, to have a great game. The only problem with Valanciunas is that we don't know how many minutes he gets. He doesn't get a lot of minutes. Now, if this game is competitive, and considering that Toronto and Cleveland are playing, and it's going to be like playoff atmosphere, at least in my eyes, in my opinion, I think that Valanciunas will get more than 25 minutes at least today. It's just, again, it's so hard to predict how many minutes they're going to give him. But if this game is close and he could be a factor, I think Valanciunas will play anywhere between 25 to 30 minutes easily today. And I would think that that's still a good play with him only valued at 7,500. I think that he'll be a nice play here in anybody's lineup. So I would definitely consider Valanciunas. Another person I would consider at center would be, of course, Jokic. Jokic is playing at Chicago. Chicago's 23rd ranked overall against centers. He has had 4 out of his last 5 games. He's put 50 plus. In his last 3 games against Chicago, he's put up 52, 27, and 38 points. And he's just a monster. This guy, You heard me say it before. I mean, this guy is the real deal. You know, in Chicago's 27th against fantasy points allowed to centers, 26th in minutes, 17th in rebounds allowed, 18th in field goals made, and 19th in three-pointers allowed. And three-pointers is this guy could hit three-pointers. So Jokic, you know, Valanciunas, good plays tonight for anybody who's interested. If you find a value somewhere else, you can use that. Jokic is a little expensive at 10-5, but I think he's worth it. Another good value play here will be maybe Inez Kanter against Miami, or his opponent Abadeo is in a good spot. I mean, New York is 26th against fantasy points allowed against centers, 27th in minutes, 18th in rebounds, 25th in field goals allowed, and 22nd in three-pointers. So all the makings for Adebayo to have a good game against the Knicks. But then again, there are those moments where Inez Kanter competes. I mean, he competes. This guy competes, and it may be tougher for Adebayo than expected. But I think he's a good value play today because he is not going to be that expensive. At center, I would say those are the best plays today. I mean, you know, you can always consider Pau Gasol. I mean, Gasol is in a good spot. He's going up against Washington. It's him and Gortat. So, I mean, you know, at $4,800, if he starts, the only thing I hate about San Antonio is that you just never know how many minutes you're going to get from any of their starters. You know, because, you know, Pop just, you know, he does things his way. You know, sometimes he rests guys, you know, in the middle of the game. He says, hey, that's enough. You're going to sit. So you just don't know, you know. So I would say here it's tough to gauge. But if you wanted to get a value here, $4,800, I think Paul is not a bad play. Only $4,800. You only need him to get about 20, you know, what is it, 20, maybe 24. I think he's capable of doing it. He's averaging 27. You know, so I think he's, you know, he's definitely a good value play here. Power forwards. If there's anybody, there's a couple guys here I like. As you can see, I got to fill those spots in myself. I think the number one guy that I like out of everybody here is Mr. James Johnson. I also like this lower tier guys like Ibaka's in a good spot. Thaddeus Young is in a good spot against New Orleans, even though he's going to face, you know, some of the big guys like AD. But Thaddeus Young, you know, definitely plays well against big guys, and he's proven to be time and time again. So he's capable of putting up some nice numbers here. Matter of fact, let's see if I have some information on him. Yeah, Thaddeus Young, New Orleans is 26 in defense overall against power forwards. In 3 out of his last 4 games, he's put up 41, 34, and 39 spots. His last 2 games against New Orleans, he's put up 29 and 35. And, you know, as you know, New Orleans struggles in a lot of areas. They struggle also in the power forward spot, 26 in fantasy points allowed, 20th in fantasy points minutes, 24th in rebounds allowed, which is a good spot for Young because he's a very good rebounder. 26 in field goals allowed to small forwards. That's pretty low. You know, that's definitely in the lower tier of the 30 teams. I mean, they're 26 there, and they are a little bit respectable. They're in the middle of the pack at 15th. Ranked against three-pointers allowed to small forwards, but still a pretty good spot for 5,500K for Thaddeus Young. I think that's a good spot for him. James Johnson is another one at 5'5" against the Knicks. The Knicks are 23rd ranked in defense against power forwards. Mr. Johnson has had 5 of his last 7 games where he's crushed value. His last game he put 50 plus, and then against New York, you know, New York 25th in fantasy points allowed, 25th in fantasy point minutes, 14th in rebounds allowed. They're 11th in field goals allowed, so they're actually pretty respectable there. But 28th in three-pointers allowed. And James Johnson does a little bit of everything. So he rebounds, he passes the ball, he scores. He once in a while shoots the 3. So you know, good spot for him. I mean, I think that's a good play. Other than Johnson, you know, you could consider Kelly Olynyk, his other power forward mate for the Miami. You're going to see the same numbers. New York. He's actually been, you know, what he's got here, 9 straight games. He's put up 9 straight games of hitting value or better. So he's in his last game he had a 60+ game. So Kelly Olynyk and James Johnson could be a nice combo there where you could use both of those guys tonight as power forwards because they're both going to get time, or you can use one or the other. So I mean, there are some good plays there. So I would think that Thaddeus Young is in play, James Johnson, Ibaka as well, Kelly Olynyk. You can always consider in the upper tier, Paul Millsap is a good spot, and Mr. Jefferson for Brooklyn against Charlotte, I would think also is in a good spot. Of course, the studs are always going to be pretty good. Anthony Davis should do well here against Indiana. So should Ben Simmons, even though he's in a power forward here in the Fanduel. He's playing point guard. So against Memphis, he shouldn't be in a good spot there as well. So you can consider him, but you got to pay 10,100. So if you could find value somewhere else, I would say yeah, you could use Simmons. So it's entirely up to you. But those are the plays that I have for power forward. At small forward, other than Wilson Chandler, I like Covington. I like Josh Richardson. Like I said before, let me see what I have here on Richardson. I think that's some good numbers on Richardson. Richardson is going against the Knicks. He has smashed value the last 2 games. He had a 40 spot and 28 against the Knicks. Actually, 33 and 28 against the Knicks the last 2 times he's played them. He's 20. As you know, the Knicks are 23rd in the league in fantasy points allowed to small forwards. They're 25th in the league in fantasy points per minute. They're 18th in rebounds allowed, 23rd in field goals made against. They're 19th in 3-pointers allowed, so that's a good spot for him as they're in the lower end of the league in that category. And Richardson is a 3-point shooter. He got 24th in assists allowed against small forwards. That's not that big of an issue with Richardson because he's not much of an assist guy. He's more of a scorer and rebounder. But a good play. Richardson is in a good spot here. Covington is another good spot against Memphis. He has hit value 7 out of his last 9 games. His last 2 games against Memphis, he put 29 and 40. And then he has, Memphis is 21st in the league in fantasy points allowed to small forwards. They're 24th in fantasy points per minute. 25th in 3-pointers allowed to small forwards, and that's a good spot for Covington. It's probably the best statistical spot for him is that he's able to hit those threes, and when he's hot and he's doing well, he's going to be fine. Memphis is also 5th. They are 5th best against assists, but that doesn't come into play with Covington because Covington is more of a scorer, 3-pointer, and maybe rebounding. He's not much of a big assist guy, even though he'll dish the ball, but he's not looking to dish. He's looking to score. So those are some good value. Those are some good plays there. Denzel Valentine will be a good spot as well. And I would say nobody really in the bottom half here intrigues me. Maybe Mr. Paul Zipster. He's had 2 games, I think. Yeah, he's played the last 2 games. I mean, he may get some action here. If this game gets a little out of hand. 23 and 25 minutes. He's put 24 and 20. So he's a nice little value play. I mean, he's only 4,000, so you can consider him. Yeah, I would think that's pretty much it, man. Covington, best play here is Chandler. You never know with Lamb. Lamb might be a good play. And then, of course, the stud's always going to be good. Giannis is going to do well. James is going to do well. But, I mean, if you want to play those guys, you can. It's just remember that their value is 12,000 and 12,800. At shooting guard, I don't know. Other than Willie Barton, I mean, I'm not too thrilled about anybody else here. D'Angelo Russell might be in a good spot. I really think that's basically it that I like here. Maybe Mr. Wayne Ellington against New York or Devin Harris might be a good play. At point guard, Collison is my favorite with Kyle Lowry. You could think about, definitely Kemba Walker would be someone that I would think you should consider if you want to go up that high. Rondo might be a good spot. He's in a good spot today. Trey Burke for the Knicks. He's a nice little value play at 4,600. He might have, and you may even think Mr. Wright here as well. But that's basically it, guys. I mean, you got a couple of values. There goes your stud 5. You got a couple other plays there. That's pretty much it, man. I mean, if there's any changes, as you know, I will definitely post it up an hour before tip-off on Twitter, and that's at manny at DFS _zone. Or you can, if you have any questions or comments, you can hit me up there. You can always leave a comment down below on the video, and I'll be more than happy to get back to you with anything you may be looking for. If you're interested in any other slates, I play pretty much a couple of different slates every single night, so it's just not the main slate or the after hours. Sometimes I'll do the express and whatever ones are in between. I do single entry, and I also definitely still do play 50-50s and so on and so forth. So I mean, have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And again, I appreciate a like on the video, and comment down below if anything you want to comment, and I'll be more than happy to get back to you. And please, subscribe to the channel. And basically that's it, guys, man. Hopefully, I've been able to help you out with some stuff tonight. Hopefully, you guys go out there and everybody making some serious money tonight. I know I'm gonna try, so I hope you guys do the same. And other than that, man, that's basically it, man. And your boy Manny here is out, man. Have a great day.